Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Southeast Termite and Pest Control. I want you to remember something, folks. Termite prevention is a lot cheaper and easier than termite eradication. Nobody in East Tennessee does a better job of protecting homes from termites than my friends at Southeast Termite and Pest Control. Make sure those things don't get in, and that way you don't have to pay to get them back out. Southeast Termite and Pest Control. All right. And by the way, we are going to do in the next segment people that should be on the list. Jimmy was right. There was a guy that we all said who, for some reason, when I printed 50 names last night at 1 a.m., he didn't get printed. So we'll have somebody that you're probably shouting at your TV. He will be on the list. All right. This was going to be a simple, hey, how about Peyton Manning winning the Super Bowl segment? And then naturally somebody writes a hit piece, and here's the deal. I think the guy who wrote it, if you read it and you know his background and you see where he's coming from, clearly it was an up with Cam, down with Peyton kind of a thing. He wrote an article. Well, let's go ahead and show it to you if we've got it. Peyton Manning's squeaky clean image was built on lies. And then a Google search last night shows about 1,000 different stories talking about this. The writer for the New York Daily News took the 74-page document from a lawsuit filed by the former Tennessee trainer, 15 years ago, about something that happened 20 years ago. It did not take the defense view at all. It just took the plaintiff's case and presented it in newspaper form as if it is all fact. Now, was this a simple case of Peyton Manning mooning someone? No, it was not. But it's still not as bad, I don't think, as this gentleman put in the article that has taken off. First, your thoughts on that being brought back up again. And Peyton Manning has settled with that person twice. At some point, it's supposed to go away. That one isn't. Thoughts?
I mean, I think if you go back and dig in anybody's background, you can find something. 20 years ago, yeah. I mean, I thought it was a silly article. I quit reading it about halfway through.
It was clearly an agenda.
It was clearly an agenda.
Mm-hmm. I don't think it could have been more one-sided. I mean, at some point, and I'm like Bob, I was reading it at least wanting to see some kind of, not rebuttal, but here is, you give somebody the chance to at least respond, state the other side. So, I mean, I just think somebody just trying to put something out there to get their name out there and stir something up.
Well, there's no question there was an agenda. All right, I think that's obvious. And look, Peyton Manning did not handle it right. It was a stupid prank on his part. He wasn't forthright about it when it happened, but he was also about 20 years old. And then there was a university settlement with it at $300,000. There were other issues that Jamie White had brought up at that time. But I just, and to imply that this has been covered up and not been reported?
Yeah, it
really?
was covered like crazy.
Yeah.
So I thought that was ridiculous too.
The thing that's interesting though is Manning did it at the right time. He did it before social media. You're seeing how it's blowing up today. In all seriousness, if he had done this and there was social media around, I don't know what his reputation would be today. And there's a writer out there, a Tennessee fan who writes nationally, who was angry, and he took the other side of this. He ripped off some angry thing about it. It was a harmless prank. This is the same guy that 5 years ago broke the story of the Alabama fan that basically did the same thing to a passed-out LSU fan. And when he broke it then, he said, well, this is potentially criminal. But now that it's Manning, well, that's a harmless prank. So I think some of that, though, shows the difference between when you could control the news and now social media doesn't even, now you can just spread falsehoods or whatever you want. All right, here's the question. I think Peyton Manning is probably the best single ambassador for a school that I've ever seen. Popularity, the ties to Tennessee. Can you think of any other player, school, tie that compares? I can only think of one.
You think
and
of
it
the same
involves
one.
the same name.
Yeah. I mean, his
Archie
and Ole Miss, yes.
Is there anybody else that you can think of?
Not to that extent, but Herschel Walker in Georgia.
Okay.
But
Might
not to
be in
that
the
extent.
conversation.
I mean, yeah.
But see, and that's just it. Every time you think of somebody else, that's what you got to throw in there. But not to that extent.
Yeah.
Here's another part of that. Peyton Manning has donated probably $10 million to the University of Tennessee through scholarship funds, through locker rooms and whatever. Tennessee athletes in the past, other than maybe Jim Haslam, they have not been really generous. If you look at the last 30, 40 years, you don't see those kind of donations from former Tennessee players at any sport than what Peyton Manning's done for UT.
All right. When we come back, we are going to name the person who should have been printed out and on that board. It's a write-in. We're going to put him up there, but we're also going to talk about other guys that should be getting some love. We'll discuss that coming back on the Sports Source.